Hi, I'm Kaylee Evans. Welcome to my channel, Social Care Connections. I hope you enjoy the video. So the purpose of this video is not to be negative about social work, but equally we do talk very openly about the realities of practice and some of the stress. I felt like this was really important because I realised when I opened up about some of my own experiences of stress, I wasn't alone and lots of my experiences were shared. And by getting that support myself, I ended up getting help that actually got me back to being myself and made me more resilient. So I'm from Adult Services and the person I'm speaking to is from Children's Services. They wanted to remain anonymous in this, and I'm going to be including some audio from our discussion, but also some artwork just to back up what we're saying and just to provide something interesting on the screen, so it's not just me. We've come together today just to talk about stress and maybe if some of our experiences can help other people. I think that would be really useful. So I think we were just having a chat before this and just acknowledging that both of us have had times in our career where we have felt really overwhelmed. And I personally found it really hard to talk about when I was actually in it. And it was only afterwards where I felt like I'd regained a sense of myself, that I felt I could talk to other people. And then I realised that loads of people were going through the same thing. But it really can have a massive effect on you physically as well as mentally. Like from a mental standpoint, like my brain, like I felt like I was losing myself. And I think it's because it's so interrelated. And like physically I was experiencing like chest pain and anxiety, like panic attacks and things. I think everything went out of control when I felt really like I was struggling. My diet went out of the window. I felt like I couldn't do exercise. All I was trying to do was just get through the day and do everything perfectly because I didn't want to make a mistake or anything. And then I just felt so tired but then alert at the same time. It's like a really weird thing. I just wondered what your experience has been.
Really similar. I think probably a similar point in my career, really, because it was kind of probably 3 or 4 years in where I just suddenly went from somebody who was really passionate about their job and absolutely loved it and would, like, I didn't really mind working all the extra hours because I just thought, like, this is why I'm here. I've been sent on this planet to do, all those like cliche things. And then it just really slowly built up and I just stopped sleeping. I thought I had a genuine problem with insomnia. So I thought I had a medical issue. Did not recognize it as being stress. Family and friends recognized it as being stress. But I was like, no, I feel fine. Like I feel fine, I'm just not sleeping. And then it just kind of escalated up from that really to the point where I felt very anxious a lot of the time, and similar with like having like chest pains. But again, I thought, oh, there must be something wrong with me.
I thought that.
There's a medical problem, and there was a combination of things going on at the same time as well, in terms of my personal life. So I wasn't really sure if it was because my husband was in Afghanistan at the time, and I couldn't identify if it was that or if it was the job. But actually, like when he was back and everything settled down, it didn't go away. But I didn't do anything about it for another 2 years.
Wow.
So, and it got to a point where I just became completely flat all the time. So I think my body's kind of response to all this extreme stress was to almost like shut down completely. So then I didn't really feel anything, and I just started to just not care about the job. Like I cared about the cases a lot, like, and the families that I was working with, but actually I just thought I'm not really sure what I'm doing now. I couldn't think straight. My head was like a fog.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I guess it's like the point I was at then was I was in a more kind of senior position, and I was supporting newly qualified social workers and students who were really struggling themselves. And then I also had managers who were also really struggling. So it was just like a big mess. Like nobody knew like what, like the most recent job I did, nobody knew what to do because everybody was so highly stressed that those coping mechanisms stuff that you build up kind of over the years, they kind of went out the window really. It just was just, yeah, it's incredibly overwhelming for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's like, it's sort of like you can have all these plans in place, can't you? And all of this thing, and you think, well, I'll never do this, and I'll always get someone to support me, and I'm someone that would, you like tell yourself you'll never get to that position, but then when you're actually in it, it's completely different, and it's like, it's really hard, isn't it, to overcome that?
Yeah, and like I was saying, it's a really hard balance between being honest with colleagues and other colleagues that you're supporting and saying, actually, I know exactly how you feel because I feel the same. But then by doing that, them feeling insecure and unable to talk to you about how they're feeling because they don't want to make you feel worse.
Yeah.
So it's really, because like I've had managers where I've had some where they're like robots and I'm like, I could never talk to you about anything, and they're really like, no, this is what it is. You prioritize, you prioritize work over anything else. Family life goes out the window. That's it. Like there's no, there was a real like bravado about it. The child protection team, we don't take any nonsense, just get on with it type of thing. But then I've had other managers who were very open with how they were feeling, but almost like too much, like too like getting really really upset and oversharing, I guess,
Yeah.
with me in the position that I was in. So then I never felt like I could say to them, well, I'm really struggling as well, because they would just say, well, I'm really struggling. It's like, oh god.
I know, yeah, that's. I almost, well, I put something on Twitter once because I saw something about how this could be managed, and I was having a really bad day, and I said, wouldn't it be good if we could have like a trained psychologist or a therapist sat with us all, that we just felt like, I'm having a really bad day, I just want to talk this through with someone completely removed that doesn't do the same job as me, and just have someone there, because I honestly felt like that had just straightened me out. Because I watch a lot of therapists like on YouTube and stuff, and they ask really good questions, and I think I feel like there's something needed more like that, rather than just like, because when you get to the point where you're having to go to someone on an appointment basis because you're saying like, I'm burnt out, I feel like that's too late. And I know that we should be proactive and like, know that we can be able to ring the people at the time, but it's hard to do it. And I just feel like if there was someone we could see around us that we could just walk up to, that would maybe be better.
Yeah, and somebody that's completely independent from the local authority, for example, if that's where you're working, or the organisation.
Yeah.
Because I like different places I've worked have had these kind of schemes in place, which is obviously fantastic and it's better than having nothing.
Yeah.
But there was always like rumours going around the office about, oh well, so and so went to see them and then they spoke to their manager and then they ended up being demoted, and all this kind of like stuff where you think, well, I don't want to go and speak to them because I don't want that to happen. Like it's different everywhere, and like everybody's got kind of different experiences of that. But like for me, it wasn't until I took a total step back from the profession and went and like paid for counselling myself, that like you're saying, and those like, you know, she started to ask those kind of particular questions that I was like, wow, this is something I could have really done with like 3-4 years ago. But yeah, it's just, if you can find that person that, like, if you've got a really good kind of mentor, or like, you know, somebody in your team who's like an advanced practitioner or someone like that who has got those skills, then yeah, that's really good. That's really important, and it's important to have somebody in work as well. But sometimes there's just that conflict of interest, and you also don't want to come across as being
and I think there is, I think even though they say we're trying to address the stigma, like, I feel like it's still there even within our profession. And I feel like, do you feel that? And we go around saying, like, you know, we're understanding and we offer counselling to other people and the people that we support, but then it's like, if we need to acknowledge that it's hard for us as well, and I had to get to that point myself where I felt like I would actually take that step, and I almost felt really in a personal dilemma, because I felt, on the one hand, I felt like I wasn't practicing what I preach, but on the other side, I genuinely was worried about my job security, like if people felt I couldn't cope. And I think mental health in itself is really hard, because you do have these physical things, but it's not like you've broken your leg where you can think, well, that's just my leg. When it's your brain, it's like, it feels like you and your whole identity. It feels like I remember feeling like I was losing myself, like that was the main thing, and it really upset me. But yeah, I did have to get my mind round the idea of actually talking to someone, and I felt like that did make me feel better in the end. And that's what I would just say, try and get your head around the stigma of it, and just acknowledge that, just get the help earlier, because I didn't wait too long, but not, you know, but not as long as you, I was gonna say.
Exactly.
But still too long, and now I wouldn't wait that long again, and I feel like I'd be more blatant with it now. I just feel like I've got over that mentally a bit, and I would never let that happen. I like to say that now, but you know.
No, I feel exactly the same. Like, it's slightly easier for me because I have taken a year away from it, so I have had that extra time to really kind of reflect on it. But yeah, I would say exactly the same thing, that it's also the response that you get is never as bad as you think it's going to be. I think, like, sometimes it depends on who you speak to, and like I know of colleagues that have like felt like they just couldn't tell anybody how they were feeling, or they would only confide in certain people. But even if it's just that one person that knows kind of where you're at, and you'd be surprised actually, like, really, like, your employer has a duty of care. Like, we talk about the legal side of it, they do. Like, I know it doesn't feel like it a lot of the time, particularly in you know, in those very high stress environments, but they do. And sometimes it's about reminding yourself of that as well, and actually, oh yeah, if something does happen to me, they do actually have a duty of care.
No, that's true. I think you do have to, like, get yourself to think of those things. And I started I like to get answers to my own questions as well, so I started looking up all these things online. I was like, maybe I have high functioning anxiety, I don't know, but started reading the thing. I think you need to, like, not self-diagnose and, like, try and put labels on yourself in a way, but then also it's like, well, there are other people that have these struggles. That made me feel a bit better. But then also looking up, I think it's internal stigma, or self-stigma, that's the phrase, where you take on board all of these things that society says about mental health, and then you start looking and thinking, oh yeah, this is definitely what people are going to feel or see about me. And I think that's definitely true, because like you're saying, like when I did actually get the support and start talking, I found a lot of people felt the same. And I also felt like there was key people that I could trust.
Yeah.
And I think obviously there's always going to be people that don't understand, but you just don't talk to them again. You
No.
just find the right people, don't you? And like,
Yeah.
and that really helped me finding the right people, and then also being honest, and then then you can get through that period and get back to feeling like you are coping.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, my experience is working in child protection, so I've not worked in other areas of social work. So obviously, I can only speak from my perspective, from
Yeah,
that in terms of local authorities and also like charities. But I think there is a big issue within social work, particularly within child protection teams, of this kind of, we're on the front line, we can deal with anything. You know, you'd get new members of staff kind of joining teams and they'd be overloaded with other people. And I've done this, so I'm not saying I'm I haven't. Talking about all these like awful stories and things they've been through, and well, that time I got locked in a flat and threatened with a knife. Oh well, yeah, but guess what happened to so and so the other week? And it's spoken about in a very bravado way, and in a way that's like, this is a completely normal situation to be in, and it's not
yeah,
normal to be exposed to such high levels of trauma on a day-to-day basis, and then have no support around that, and for that to be then discussed in a way that it's completely fine.
yeah,
And it's that kind of like that mentality is, for a few years, is great, because you think, well, I'm fine, like I've done this for a while now, I've dealt with anything, so it's fine, it's not, it's not going to affect me. But long term, that's not realistic, because
no,
it's in your head still. Like, whether you have it like a conscious awareness of that or not, those experiences and those situations where, if you really think about it and look back on it, and you just think, oh my god, I literally could have been killed in this situation.
yeah.
I know that sounds really dramatic, but that is the reality of some of the things that go on and have gone on. And that's just not that's not a normal working environment.
I think that's it. Like, I definitely agree. I think we have to acknowledge it's not okay. Like, it's not normal, and
No.
we need to get the support at those times. Yeah, and I think that's the point where it can't become a culture of just accepting that. Like, we need to be able to ask for supervision and get support. And I think sometimes it can feel like you're on a hamster wheel. You're just doing something, you're typing it, you're doing something, you're typing. I think we have to acknowledge that, like, you do need those times in between where you're talking it through and thinking about things.
And that's why now that is so hard, because obviously already a huge amount of local authorities have brought in agile working policies. So I'm really lucky, because where I've worked previously, we've always had a team, and that was so important to me, to be able to come in to a team of people and have those discussions. And now, obviously, not only is that been brought in generally across the board in terms of agile working, but now, because of coronavirus and everybody's working from home, that's taken away that little layer of kind of protection in those discussions. So it's even more important now for people to be able to recognize that they do need to speak to people, and they need to have those conversations, because not only are you still having those experiences on your own, which you do a lot as a social worker anyway, because you're on your own a lot, in silo, but you're then going home, so you've just got all this stuff and you're just in your house. So you're not having that disconnect between going on a visit, going back to the office, going home. You haven't got that separation. So that's another kind of challenge, I think.
I totally agree, because I felt like the drive home helped.
Yeah.
What I started doing, actually, this is a tip that helped me. I started listening to something totally unrelated to social work where people were talking, but about something else, because I know that I'm like a talking person. So I just put podcasts on in my car, like running through the stereo. And it really helped me to hear someone talk, just talking in a really like quick, nice way.
Yeah.
Something else really helped me. But then just I think you do have to break it up. Sometimes when I get like when I finish work, I can be like up here, like I'm talking really loud, and my husband's like, "You need to like lower the volume." I'm so intense because you're like running at 100 miles an hour. You're trying your best to like sort things out and help people, and then it's like, really hard to go from that to like, "Oh, I'm meant to chill now." Sorry.
Yeah, your brain's like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah. So I think we've like hit on some main points. So it's like, it's not your fault. Acknowledge that it's not normal. Get some help. Sort of plan in advance, maybe when you are feeling well, about some of the things that might help you. I think because you can't compare to other people's. Like, I always think self-care is like quite personal, isn't it? Like what might help you. Take control of it a bit, because I've taken some control. Like I found that when I was really stressed, I was like glued to my phone in case anything came through my mobile, because I was like working quite on my own as well. And I think when that was making me feel really anxious, because I felt like I was out of control a bit. But then when I realised, like, if I really needed to just get on top of paperwork and take an hour to just do that, I actually just put my phone on silent for an hour, and I just got back to people. And I made sure that everyone had a number for like another number that they could ring where there was a group of people. I never left people without, but it's like when you feel like it's all on you, I think that's the problem. And then I think taking a minute to just, if you're in a really high pressure situation, or you're like sat at your desk and you're just staring at the screen and it's like your brain just isn't working anymore, just getting up and going for a walk. Like, I think that should be okay. I've started doing that a bit now. Not feeling like it's going to help if you just sit there and worry.
Absolutely.
What do you think about those things?
I think those micro breaks are so important. There's one place where I worked up north where it was in a town centre, so we could literally just get out and go. We used to just literally go and get a coffee from Starbucks, and it's like a really small thing, but we used to like do that regularly, or like just go to Greg's, or just even just walk around the block. And that made such a big difference, because it was just getting out of that space, and like, you know, that the phone is always going to ring, so, and there's always somebody there to answer it there. So that just made a really big difference, that kind of environment. So yeah, like just getting away from it, so even if it's just for 5 minutes, is so important. Like, yeah, it's still going to be there, that work's still going to be there, but actually that 5 minutes is going to make no difference, and you'll be much more productive as well. If you're able to do that. And take a lunch break. Oh gosh, it's so difficult, but take a lunch break.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the last main thing I wanted to say was like, I think what makes me feel really bad for people is I feel like most people come into the job because they want to help people, and then they feel like a personal failure if they can't do it within a social work system. But I think it's like, separate that out, and maybe it's the system that's wrong. If you're coming in for the right reasons and you've got a really good mindset and stuff, I just think don't take it personally. And also, there is a lot of jobs out there where you can still use your degree, but I think when you're in it, you feel like there isn't. But you've got so many transferable skills if you decide to do something else with it, really. I think in the charitable sector, there's jobs that are sometimes different. I think it doesn't all have to be statutory. I think we can get.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've worked for a children's charity, and it's not comparable in terms of the work. It's not even like, it's if anything completely the other end of the spectrum, like, and it was somewhere where it was really good to have a break. And yeah, like I felt like I had to just carry on doing these statutory child protection roles because that's what social work is, even though it's not. There's so many other like areas of it as well, which, you know, long term would be, I would love to do different kind of look into working in different areas of social work. But yeah, there are other jobs that are nowhere near as stressful, and that they do exist, and I know that because I've actually done one, and actually it really is very, very different, and the culture is very different as well. Because I think, going back to kind of what we were saying about feeling like it's your fault, I know a big issue within local authorities is the audits. So everything is so closely monitored and audited. Depending on which one you work for, depends on how extreme that is. Like, I've experienced different extremities of that. So I've worked some places where it was like self-audit, and you kind of, in supervision, you would discuss, you know, when you've done the last visit, you know, those kind of all those kind of standard things, and it was noted, and that was kind of monitored by managers, but in a kind of just keeping on top of things way. But then I've experienced the other side of it, where it was monitored externally, so they had external people coming in, auditing, picking up things off caseloads, like off the system. And then one place started, so basically you had to like tick a certain amount of boxes to pass your audit, and then they started to send out emails across the whole of social care, adult and children's social care, naming and shaming social workers who had slightly missed. So they'd like, I don't know, they'd not got the PR on for a child, so then they called it the What a Shame Award. I'm not joking. Yeah. So it was like, the What a Shame Award this week goes to so and so. If only you'd added this on, and that kind of thing is so daunting. I know. As you can imagine, morale in that particular place was incredibly low. And it was just, that particular place was the point where I was like, well, I'm going to look for a job somewhere else, because I can't work in that kind of environment. But there's still this bizarre belief within these organizations that negative reinforcement works, and it doesn't. Like, it has the complete opposite effect. Everybody just felt, well, what's the point? I'm working as hard as I can, I'm getting no support, and now we're getting the What a Shame Award emails being sent round. You just feel like you're so bad at your job, and it's like, what? Why did they think that was a good idea? Like, I'm still baffled by it. It's just,
I'm actually baffled completely by that. That is so bad. But do you know what that makes me think, actually, as well? That's when you think, why did I come into this in the first place? It's not the people. And actually, as stressful as the situations are that we go into, I don't think that's ever been the thing that's really stressed me. I think it's the bit where you're thinking, I need to write this correctly. It's all the burden of what you've got to write,
100%.
or like what you don't want to get wrong, or the report or whatever. And then it's that on top of it. That's the problem.
If they could take away those addition, or even put in proper, not one admin person for like 50 people, which seems to be sometimes the solution. It's like, that poor worker then is like, I can't do any of this work. If there was proper support for social workers, actually the job would be so much better. Like, I was so torn between having a break from it, because the face-to-face work that I was on the ground stuff that I was doing with the families, that's not the problem at all. It is the wider kind of organizational issues that are there that make you feel like you're just doing a terrible job all the time.
Yeah.
And that's hard when if you're doing a job where, you know, often for completely understandable reasons, families may not want to have you involved working with them, or in whatever kind of setting that is. So you're kind of working with that as well. And then you've also, on the other side, so you sometimes feel like you're doing a rubbish job over there, and then you're being told you're doing a rubbish job because you've not met XYZ
Yeah.
audit. And I get that they have to do audits because they have to keep track. There's got to be a way of monitoring whether, you know, children are being, or vulnerable adults, or whatever, whoever, not whatever, are being seen. But there's ways of doing that that isn't in a way that makes social workers feel like they're just doing a terrible job. And there's so much fantastic work going on out there, but there's a lot of workers whose self-esteem has been so eroded by these organizational structures in the system that they feel like they can't do it anymore, or the work they're doing is worthless. And it's not, but they can't see that because of what's coming from above.
That's so true. And that's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's actually really hit me, that what you said. Yeah.
It's really sad, because ultimately those people are people who will probably end up leaving the profession. And I've seen really, really good workers just go, I can't do this anymore, and just go, and have not come back to social work. And like I have, like, a year ago I was at a point where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back, because I feel so like, you know, like eroded by this constant feeling of not doing a good enough job. I don't feel like that now, but that's because I've had the time to, you know, reflect and kind of think about why did I feel like that, and where did those things come from. But I have seen so many fantastic workers, and even like a lot of newly qualified workers as well, come in who are brilliant. They're so passionate. They've got some fantastic ideas, and they are like, you're like, yes, brilliant, we need more people like you. And then you see them over a year just get so like eroded by this other stuff, and then their self-esteem is just so low by the end of it. They just haven't got that kind of that drive anymore, and you can totally understand why. Because,
and I wonder if maybe that's something that needs to be more thought about at uni. Like, if we know that these are the situations that we're in, maybe that's what needs to be a massive part of the teaching. How to acknowledge, like, you know, basic, like, I feel like we went through mental health, but in terms of supporting other people, but like, you need to connect them things with yourself, like about not internalizing things and not feeling like it's your fault, separating it out, you know, all of those things. Because I've learned a lot from Twitter, like following people that are trying to help other people, and I've learned a lot from YouTube. Like, I don't feel like in practical terms that I was prepared through that at uni. Maybe
I think, you know, don't you? You know, oh well, this is going to be a really hard job. Nobody goes into it thinking it's going to be all rainbows and fairies, but it's having those kind of skills already there, and the understanding behind that, I think would be so beneficial. And I'm not sure how like social work really is in terms of the job, and that's difficult. And obviously when you go on placement, that gives you a bit of a better idea, but if you don't have a local authority placement, if you don't have a statutory placement, that's difficult then, because the potentially you're still not getting that kind of realistic view. And then if you're getting that realistic view but without the support behind it and without the understanding, then that's no good either.
So I think, like, we've raised a lot of points. Do you think there's anything we particularly missed, or do you think that's everything really?
I think you could talk for forever.
Yeah, we could.
Genuinely. I think the only other thing is when people talk about kind of self-care, there is that misconception that self-care is like having a bath and eating some chocolate. But it's like we were saying, like, it's a very personal thing about what it is that makes kind of you feel better. my personal view on self-care is that it's around being strict with yourself in terms of what work you're doing at home, about like actively speaking to people and seeking support, limiting your social media use, making sure you are going to bed when you say you're going to go to bed. Things that are really boring, like that structure is so boring, but actually those are the things that like long term can have a really big impact. Whereas like a one-off spa day, yeah, it's really nice. I'd love to go on a spa day. Oh, I miss it. But like long term, that's not going to really impact on whether you're going to burn out or not.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm really strict with my going to bed times in the week. Like, I just know that I'm not someone you want to talk to if I've not got enough sleep.
Me too.
Just definitely not. So yeah, I think that's a good point to end on, really. Thank you for talking to me.
You're very welcome.
If you enjoyed the video, please can you like and subscribe and press the bell if you'd like to be updated when I put out more videos. Thank you.